I'll set up. I'm just going to pray for Jess before she starts. So, Father, we thank you so much for this woman of God. We thank you that you continue to use her and shape her in this way. And Father, I pray that as she speaks, that you would anoint her words, that you would partner with her as she delivers this message, and that we would have open ears to hear what you want to say to us today. Amen.
Cool. Fab. So, like Ben said, over the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at holy habits. And this week, I get to speak about simplicity. Now, when I was asked to speak about simplicity, I was quite excited because anyone that knows me pretty well will know that I love a good clear out. I love cleaning, I love anything to declutter my life. I'm sold. Maria Kondo, love her. But unfortunately for my husband, this means he often comes home to a rearranged house. I throw away a lot of his stuff without permission, and I often put things in safe places, and we will never find them again. But simplicity is so much more than design and what a house looks like. It's about a way of life. And although reducing how much we consume is really important, this is only half the story. Today I'm going to look at how we can simplify inwardly and how we can simplify outwardly. Richard Foster, who wrote a book on spiritual disciplines, said simplicity is an inward reality that results in an outward lifestyle. It affects us at every single level. And it's not just the things in our homes, but it's our activities, it's our schedule, it's our budget, and it's how we spend our time. So let's start inwardly. Many of us are under the assumption that once our inner world is filled with joy and peace and life, no, not our inner world, if our inner world could be filled with peace, joy and life, then our external world would be perfect. But this is just an illusion. We believe this because this is what we're sold. Every day, social media and adverts tell us once we have a bit more, once we get a bit more, then we'll be happy, then we'll experience this sort of fulfilled life that everyone's chasing. But the reality is we're a society who are anxious, we're tired, we're burnt out, we're overwhelmed, we're overscheduled. There's another passage in Matthew 11, and it's in the Message translation. And it's put perfectly. It says, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burnt out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And this is the invitation that Jesus gives us. He says, are you tired? Are you burnt out? He said, step out of that world that runs on burnout and live a life of rest and peace. So how do we cultivate this inward reality? It sounds simple. It's probably a lot more complex than this, but it's about us copying the lifestyle of Jesus. Over the coming weeks, we're going to be looking at how we can do that through prayer, fasting, celebration, confession, Sabbath, all these great practices that can help us sort of achieve this sort of inward peace and joy. But like I said before, it's also about an outward reality. So I'm going to look at 3 key points today. So I'm going to look at what we consume, our calendars, and how connected we are. So once we have this sort of inward simplicity, that we feel like we have this godly centre, that actually our life will look different, our lifestyle will look different. So the first is consume. So we all know we're consumers. We live in a society that's obsessed with more. Shopping has become part of our identity. It's who we are. We love to shop. You know, I love to shop. I'm guilty of it. But there's more to it than that, really. So I've got some stats. We all love a little stat. So at the moment, in the UK, over 300,000 tonnes of clothing go to landfill every year in the UK. And the fashion and clothing industry is the number 2 polluting industry in the world, second to oil. In a survey from 2019 in the UK, a third of adults and teens said shopping made them feel better than working out. And when asked about hobbies, girls aged 13 to 20 identified shopping as their favourite pastime. And the thing is, we've become attached to things. We crave things, we want more. And until we see how unbalanced our culture has become, we're unable to deal with the battle within ourselves. We're unable to identify it. In our reading, it said, Jesus said, "And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labour or spin." Jesus here is telling us that if he gives so much attention to the wild flowers, don't you think he'll take care of us too? Don't you think he would do his best for us? If we embrace a simplified lifestyle that will involve less clothes, less stuff, less options, we'll turn to receive greater gifts like more joy, more peace, more space, more time, and more loving relationships. It's not just about getting rid of clothes, it's about looking at our lifestyle and how much we consume, where are we putting our time and effort. It's intentionally living with less to make more room for God. So that's the first one. The second one is our calendar. Now this is a challenging one because I think often we don't think about simplifying our life, looking like simplifying our calendars and how we spend our time. But how many of us here feel like we don't have enough hours in the day? Yeah, probably a lot of us. And when we're asked how we are, we reply we're tired, busy, or exhausted. But a key way to simplify our lives is to look at how we're actually spending our time. You may have heard the quote, "How we spend our days is of course how we spend our lives." So how we spend our time will determine who we become or don't become. So many of us complain about not having enough time, but how are we actually spending our time at the moment? So I've got some more stats for you. So in the UK, we currently spend, on average, I'm not saying this is all of us, but on average, we spend 2 hours, 23 minutes on social media per day, and an average of 6 hours and 42 minutes online. So shopping, browsing, work, whatever that is. The average Brit watches 22 hours and 36 minutes of TV a week. And in a recent survey, it was found the average male will play up to 10,000 hours of video games by the age of 21. So 10,000 hours, that is a lot of hours. And in 10,000 hours, you can actually become elite at anything. You could master a language, you could learn a new sport, or you could even learn a new instrument. Or you could complete Battle Pass level 5 in Call of Duty. So, either way. But the reality is, if we actually kept a diary of how we spend every hour of each day, I think we'd be pretty surprised at how much time we waste. How much time we waste on things that aren't giving us life, that aren't filling us with joy. Now this isn't to shame anyone. I am also guilty of a 3-hour binge on Netflix or just aimlessly scrolling through TikTok. But instead it's a challenge. It's a challenge for us to consider how we are spending our days. So I want you to ask yourselves the question, what would your schedule look like if God were in charge of it? So I did a little research and I thought, well, what would that look like? What's the best way to spend our time? And the best example is, of course, Jesus. So Jesus would get up early in the morning, he would pray, he'd usually be first up, he'd be reading his Bible, and he'd be in a quiet time with God. It said in Mark 1, verse 35, Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, went off to a solitary place, and he prayed. Every chance he got, he would share a meal with friends, and he understood the importance of community. He wasn't too busy to stop and listen. And when he was tired or he'd been working all day, he would retreat to his quiet place. He knew the importance of rest. And one of his most important practices was he always made time for the Sabbath. Every Sunday was dedicated to God, an entire day for nothing but rest and worship, which I know sounds gorgeous, but this is what he did. And Jesus demonstrated what a healthy rhythm of life looks like. He showed us that when we make time for God and when we make time for people, when these are our two priorities, that life can look completely different. We need to stop doing the things that don't matter and start building our life on the stuff that does. In order to have a healthy soul, we must eliminate the hurry from our lives and invest our hours in an eternal kind of life. So my last point is connected. So Jesus was a man with a lot of friends. He had a lot of people that followed him and a lot of people that knew him. He loved people and he made time for people. Now, many of us may not consider our relational circles as part of a simplified life, but actually relationships and connection are a core part of who we are and what we build our life on. Many of us here will probably have hundreds of Facebook friends, Instagram followers, or numbers in our phone books, but how many of those people would you actually call when something went wrong? How many of those people would you call when you really, really needed help? The number of people we know does not equal the number of true friends we have. Jesus understood the importance of where we invest our time and who we spend our time with. Again, Jesus gives us a great example of this. So just to start, he had a large circle of friends, all these people that knew him, so we call it the 75. These for us would be maybe co-workers, neighbours, people we see at clubs, maybe mums and dads at the school gate. They're often very circumstantial friends. You may not consider them very close friends, but we know them. Then there's the 12. Through Jesus' 3 years of ministry, he had 12 men that followed him, also known as the disciples. And these were close friends. These are our friends that we call when we need something. These are friends that we like to hang out with. They're good to us, they're pretty loyal. And then he also had the 3. And this was Peter, James, and John. And these were people that knew, these were friends that knew Jesus at a deeper level. These were friends that Jesus invested time in and built really strong relationships with. Now this isn't a set number, this 75, 12, and 3, but this is a good way of looking at our relational circles and who's in them, and who's good for us and who isn't, who's given us life, and who's actually maybe toxic in our life. This really helped me a while ago understand where my friendship groups were. As many of you may have experienced, when you move around or you go to university or you start new jobs, you end up with friends all over the country. And sometimes it feels like you actually don't have many close friends at all. So I made 3 lists. I made a wider group of friends, I did a closer group of friends that know me pretty well, and then I named 2 to 3 people that I really wanted to invest time in, that I wanted to be accountable to, that I wanted to know and love and spend time with. I wanted to know that these friends were in for the long haul. And maybe you need to do this too. Maybe you need to look at and pray about your relational circles. Are there some friendships that maybe you need to prune, or maybe there's some that you need to invest in? By pruning the relationships that are not good for us, we have more room for the ones we value. And this greatly simplifies our life. But nothing in this life, apart from God, can satisfy our desires, but we continue to chase after it. As a result, we're restless, angry, we're anxious, we're discontent. All the things that lead to a life of hurry, busy, overload, shopping, materialism, and chasing things that don't fulfill us. But God's given us an invitation. He wants us to live freely and lightly. And he wants us to travel with him by his side, in the freedom of stuff, things, and broken relationships. It's like what he says in that verse before. I'm going to read it just as we finish. It says, "Come to me, get away with me and recover your life. I'll show you to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." So Ben's going to help us now respond to what we've heard.
Great, thank you. So there's a lot of great stuff to try and process and take in there. So the way in which we're going to do it is pretty practical. So Jess obviously mentioned there the three areas that we can look at simplifying our life to create more room for God and more room for his presence in our lives. So you always got what we consume, the consumerism that some of us probably find quite difficult to fight against. We've got the calendar, the schedule, and we've got connection and the people, the friendships that we have. So what we're going to do is in front of you should have pieces of paper and a pen. So I want you to grab one of those. And I just want you to just spend a few moments and ask God which of these areas that he wants you to focus on now. And then once he's made that apparent to you, or you've chosen one, I'm just going to talk about ways in which we can write things down to help us practically simplify our lives in these areas. So the first one within consumerism. So in your hearts, just ask God to highlight areas of your life where your hearts have been hardened to consumerism. So maybe if there's certain patterns or certain responses to certain situations where you have to go out and get the next jacket or pair of trainers, or whether it be food or drink or whatever it is, that you're leaning and reacting to that in that way, and just ask the Holy Spirit to convict you in the ways that consumerism manifests itself in your lives. And I just want you to write them down if that's what you want to focus on, and just ask God to give you the strength to be able to fight against those in your lives. And as you write them down, just pray through them and ask God to help you to get rid of them. For calendar, for your schedules, if you think that you're always really busy and tired and stretched all the time, what I want you to do is go through what a normal week looks like, write down the different commitments that you have, how you spend your time, and maybe list them into different sections. So list them in things that bring you closer to God and things that take you further away from God. Things that bring meaning and value to your life and to your soul, or things that take away from that. So that question of what would your calendar look like if God was in charge of it, why don't you split those two lists into what God would put on your schedule and what maybe he wouldn't. And then the last one is connection. So obviously some your kind of friendship circles and the people that you know. I think it's really important to say with this one that we're not saying that the people who can be toxic in your life or can be difficult in your life shouldn't be in your life. That's definitely not what we're saying. What we're saying is that there are relationships that take an awful lot from us, and sometimes we need to know when to let those go and when to prune those relationships back. But also we need to understand who the people are in our lives that God's placed in our lives to bring value, accountability, support and encouragement as well. So you might want to list 2 or 3 people that you want to invest more time in. You might want to list a couple of people that you want to invest in as individuals to try and create a deeper and more meaningful relationship with them. And then the other side, you might want to list people who actually you think it might be good to step back from and to prune. We'll give you sort of 5-10 minutes to do that, and then we'll finish. No, you'd have to do all of them. I thought I made that pretty clear. No. Is that not clear? Okay. Do one of them. Or 2 if you've got time.